My morning started with an admittedly lackluster hotel breakfast. It tasted fine, but not fine enough for me to have paid an extra 1,000 yen to get breakfast included with my stay. As I passed through Shiga Prefecture and Aichi Prefecture, the houses definitely had a more traditional feel to them, but it was also quite foggy and I couldn't actually see much. Honestly, this whole section of the trip in general just made me very, very sleepy. Even as we passed through Nagoya, one of Japan's biggest cities, mind you, it just felt so empty, bleak, and boring. And honestly, if you ask anyone who lives in Japan about Nagoya, even though it's the third biggest city, everyone will just tell you it is boring. And I do tend to concur with that, unfortunately. The train I took in the morning was mostly empty, however, I definitely chose to sit on the wrong side, as all of the pretty, stunning mountains were on the opposite side from me. You can see a little bit of them here with the footage I sneakily took. Also, because it was foggy and misty and I have no polarized lens, there's gonna be reflections in the camera and I'm really sorry about that. As we passed into Shizuoka Prefecture, I was super excited to maybe see Mount Fuji, but as you can tell, it was quite cloudy, and guess what I definitely did not see? Apparently there's only 100 days a year where you can actually see Mount Fuji, so I don't feel too bad about not having a lot of luck on this day, but it is what it is. I decided to stop at Fuji anyways, just to see if the clouds would eventually clear. They did not. So instead, I crossed lines and then I went to eat some famous train station soba at Fuji Station itself. As far as on the platform train soba stalls go, they're normally pretty, for lack of a better word, dingy and frequented only by locals, if that gets you the idea. But this one had a lot of signatures from famous celebrities, and it was delicious. It was an older lady running the whole thing, who was polite even though there was a giant crowd of people, and the actual soba itself was really, really, really good. I think the broth here in Kanto is a lot different from what we have down in Kyushu, so it was definitely a welcome change for me. The trains from Fuji to Kanagawa Prefecture were mainly commuter-style bench trains, so I was not able to take any footage. However, when I switched onto the Ueno Tokyo line in Kanagawa, it was amazing. The clouds were gone, and suddenly the world felt colorful again. I don't know if you can tell just the drastic change in color of the footage. I did not edit the color of this footage in any way. It was just like that. It was so stunning. It makes me really, really want to go back to Kanagawa sometime soon. There were so many cute little seaside hamlets. The actual colors of the houses are nice. The greenery was green. You could see the sea from the side that I wasn't on, but oh well. It felt really, really, really nice to not just look at the gray, depressing clouds. I am so thankful. I think riding this section of the line actually fixed my train fatigue a little bit because I suddenly didn't want to die. It was truly wonderful. As soon as I got to Tokyo, I dropped off my bags and I went to go eat my favorite Tokyo local specialty, which is monjayaki. You see, monjayaki is like okonomiyaki's uglier, less loved cousin, but I personally prefer it to okonomiyaki in every possible way. I went to an old store run by an even older couple, and I ate something I'd never tried before in my life, camembert cheese okonomiyaki. I don't think I've seen this offered before at another shop, and I just sat there in awe and amazement as she cut up an entire block of camembert cheese and mixed it in. I know that monjayaki is not the most appealing thing to look at on camera because it really just looks like goop, but trust me, this is very, very, very delicious goop. You eat it with what looks like a paint scraper, but that's part of the charm, okay? It is delicious, and if you can get over how it looks, you will be in for a world of enjoyment. After consuming my daily recommended allowance of calorie-rich scoop, I headed to bed for the night, choosing to rest in a capsule hotel because it was dirt cheap, especially for Tokyo. One night cost me 4,000 yen, but I was also in the middle of all the red light districts. In total, I passed through 6 prefectures on this day: Shiga, Gifu, Aichi, Shizuoka, Kanagawa, and Tokyo. I woke up at 4 a.m. to catch the first train to the Gotonda station. It was surprisingly busy even though it was 4 a.m. By the time the train came, the actual platform itself was packed. All kinds of people were on the train in the morning, from people still a little bit too drunk from the night before, or people trying to get to their early morning shift. Nevertheless, the train was packed. In the seat I did get, I ended up finding a full stale, which I thought was a little bit funny. As we quickly sped away from Tokyo's giant sprawling metropolis, I was gently surprised to see the sun rising between the buildings. However, the sun quickly became far, far, far too bright for my poor sensitive eyes to handle, so I had to switch seats across the way because it was a little bit too much. The first city of note that I passed through was Mito. You see, Mito used to be one of the 3 largest cities in Japan, but it's been largely deserted since the Edo period. Mito is also known as the city of natto, and the train station has natto soba, but I was still too early when I went and it was closed. There's a lot of weird random caves around Mito that you can see from the train. Actually, Tohoku and the north in general in Japan has a lot of limestone, which contributes to this cave formation. And because I'm an absolute genius, after Mito, I transferred onto the wrong train and gave myself 2 extra transfers as a result. Oh well. It was really hard to get some of these caves on camera because they went by just so quickly, but apparently they've been used since medieval times, for burial, religious purposes, and so on. As we left Ibaraki and approached Fukushima, a lot of the houses and train stations seemed very oddly newly built for some reason, which I guess makes sense because, you know. Actually, the town I'm staying in tonight, Soma, was part of the original evacuation zone after the nuclear disaster. Another thing that surprised me, especially as I got closer to the actual site of the disaster itself, was just how flat and barren the land up here is. Maybe it's because I'm kind of close to the coastline, but everything was just flat. The few things I did see were very obviously newly built, but there was just this profound sense of emptiness I don't really think you see in other regions of Japan. The train line does take you incredibly close to the actual current nuclear exclusion zone. I was talking to some locals, and apparently there's some really cool cave art made by people over 20,000 years ago in the current exclusion zone, but no one can see it because it's right behind a fence. Honestly, the whole place just felt eerie and empty. I'm not saying empty is a bad thing. I love the countryside in Japan, and I've been to plenty of empty places, but this place felt empty in like a wrong way. I don't really believe in ghosts that much, but if there was a ghost, I think they would probably be here. Anyways, I was kind of spooked, so I went to go eat food. You see, Fukushima is famous for this kind of salmon rice bowl where the rice is simmered in salmon broth, there's salmon eggs and also salmon. I'm okay with salmon, it's not my favorite, but I want to try it since I was here. I went to this kind of fancy, expensive sushi restaurant, asked for it, and they told me they just sold out of it early this morning. So, because I was too awkward to leave, I ended up paying about $25 for this plate of sushi. It was good sushi, please don't get me wrong, but I don't think it was worth $25. After finishing my admittedly overpriced sushi meal, I went to Takekoma Inari Shrine, which is one of the 3 main Inari shrines in all of Japan. I always enjoy visiting Inari shrines because they always have a very cool atmosphere to them. This place was no different. It was stunning. Not quite as big as Fukushima Inari, but it was very pretty nonetheless. As I waited for my train to take me back to Soma where I was staying the night, I ended up finding this weird peach-flavored drink. It honestly wasn't that good. Then, after riding the train, I got off at Soma. Now you might ask, why Soma? I have literally never heard of this city before. Well, you see, I have a best friend, and her cat's name is Soma, so I really wanted to get her some sort of souvenir from the town called Soma. I ended up doing just that, and I went to a shrine and I found some very pretty omamori with Soma's name on it. Soma is also famous for having its castle be the site of inspiration for a really famous ukiyo-e painting, which is a woodblock painting. In the painting, the princess of the castle recited a spell on a scroll to scare a soldier. This princess was the princess of a ruined empire, with her father trying and then failing to set up a rebellion in the eastern provinces. She lived in his ruined castle until after his death. In the modern day, one could also call the castle in Soma ruined. Nothing remains of it except for parts of the castle wall, the old gate, and the reconstructed bridge. The shrine on site was also very cool, but I was just focused on getting omamori with the name of my friend's cat on them. Soma City was severely damaged by the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. Even though the city wasn't in the best state, it always accepted refugees from the disaster. In history, Soma City was known for having great chivalrous cavalry warriors, so it's great to see that chivalrous spirit still exists today. On this day, I passed through 5 prefectures: Tokyo, Chiba, Ibaraki, Fukushima, and Miyagi. I did stay in Fukushima, but I went up to Miyagi to see the shrine and eat sushi. After getting to my hotel, I decided I was a little bit too tired to go out and eat dinner, so I went to a nearby convenience store, got ramen, and called it a day. Soma Station is really cool. There's a well-groomed pine tree next to it, and the whole station itself looks kind of like an old house. The train up to Miyagi was also commuter-style benches, but luckily for a brief period of time, there was no one on it, so I was able to take a little bit of footage of the scenery outside. However, the train was quite old, and as you could tell, the windows were quite dirty. But honestly, it gave the footage a weird dreamlike effect that I honestly don't hate. At Sendai Station, I transferred trains once again up to Iwate, and guess what? It was more commuter style benches. Yay. As I got to Iwate, I had a 2-hour layover in Morioka. I was treated to wonderful views of Mount Iwate, and then I decided to go eat my favorite food in existence, doner kebab. You see, we do have doner kebab in Kumamoto, but it's not quite the same as the ones we had in Canada. But the one I got here was stunning. The drink you can see is apricot juice, and the doner kebab was actually spicy. It made me hiccup. I was so happy. Living in Japan, one of the things I miss the most every single day is spicy food, and that definitely satisfied my craving, and I was so happy. Towards the end of my layover, I decided to go buy tickets for the train. You see, the next train line I rode is kind of weird, but 1/4 of it is owned by a private company, and then the rest is operated by JR, so you have to buy a separate ticket for that quarter of the line, even though I had the JR pass. This train was clearly designed for sightseeing. The benches are facing the window and they're like solitary seats for the most part, so you just have the entire thing to yourself. It is amazing. The sun was definitely shining directly in my eyes at this point, but that did not deter me from enjoying the view outside. It was stunning. This train winded through the mountains very slowly, and we passed through the absolute middle of nowhere, and I was very surprised to actually see snow. Yeah, it's May, but here in Kumamoto, we don't have any snow. We have it like maybe once or twice in December, and that's it. So seeing like actual thick blankets of snow and ice on the rivers was like insane to me. As we passed through the countryside, I was really surprised at just how empty a lot of the places were. I get that Japan's population decline is hitting the northern regions the hardest, and I think it was really visible even with the train lines. There were a lot of shuttered businesses, empty stations, abandoned stations, and just so many places where there was absolutely nothing at all. Also, this line, the Haniwan line, just randomly decides to switch directions as it hits Akita, so that definitely surprised me a little bit. I was like, oh no, did I mess up? Am I going to go back to Morioka now? How am I going to get to my hotel? I was a bit worried. But yeah, Akita has a kind of reputation for being empty, and it was also definitely quite empty, though it was stunning. There were so many rivers, old farmlands that we passed through, and it was very pretty. Eventually, I got off, and then I transferred onto the train to Aomori. Aomori was also commuter-style benches, so unfortunately I could not film that much. The one thing that did really surprise me is how red the farmland was. I think the soil up here must be like really rich in iron or something, because there was so much just blood red soil. And unsurprisingly, because it's Aomori, there were also a lot of apples. As I reached Aomori, the northernmost major city in Honshu, I was stunned by the view outside. You could see the ocean in the background, a giant bridge just perfectly overlooking the train station. I got to my hotel, checked in, and had a bit of a weird experience with the front desk clerk at the hotel trying to ask me to see my piece of information. For context, in Japan, as long as you live in Japan, all you need to provide is your address and phone number. But he kept asking me to see my visa and kept asking me like, oh, what period of stay are you in? Like, what's your visa type? How long have you been in Japan for? Have you had any issues with the police? I'm like, why are you asking me this? I've never had this experience in any other hotel in Japan, and it honestly kind of unnerved me a little bit. To make myself feel better after that admittedly strange interaction, I went to go eat some tuna. You see, Aomori is famous for its tuna, so I went and ate a tricolor tuna sashimi bowl. On that day, I passed through 4 prefectures: Miyagi, Iwate, Akita, and Aomori. I woke up in the morning, and then I went down to eat my hotel breakfast, which I paid extra for. It was fine. This hotel chain is famous for its curry, but it was kind of mid. They had some nice Aomori local specialties, like apple jelly and this senbei soup, but it was mid. I walked back towards Aomori Station, and then I realized that my ferry for the day was cancelled because of high winds. You see, there is no actual train line, like normal train line anyways, that goes between Aomori and Hokkaido, so your 2 options are Shinkansen or the ferry. In the spirit of this trip, I wanted to take the ferry just because it's a slower route of travel, but it was really windy that day, so unfortunately, ferries were a no-go. So, regretfully, I had to pay an extra $60 for a brief Shinkansen to Hakodate. And then, because Hokkaido's trains are absolutely horrendous, I waited a whole 2 hours for my train. The first train I took was from Hakodate to Mori. You see, Mori just means forest, and I can confirm that this city was indeed in the middle of the forest. but it also passed by a really, really stunning mountain. It was so beautiful, and unfortunately, once again, I definitely did sit on the wrong side of the train. Or is my luck? Where did it go? I was the only foreigner on the train, and I was using my camera, so I might have stood out a little bit, but he kept staring at me, which is, you know, what happens sometimes. I just kind of ignored it and went away. But in Japan, when someone takes a photo, the camera makes a really loud clicking noise, right? I heard the clicking noise and I turned around and he was taking a photo of me, and I made a facial expression like, what are you doing? Went back to my stuff and I hear it again, except this time he's shoved his camera like very close to my face. I didn't really know how to react. I was just like, what? I didn't say anything, honestly. You see, even though this train stops at Mori, there is nothing much to do in Mori. So everyone on the train got off and then promptly waited an hour and 30 minutes for the next train. But I'm built different and I had done a little bit of research beforehand, so I went to eat Mori's famous yakisoba. This yakisoba is a bit different from any other yakisoba you've tried because it's served in a broth. Yakisoba is typically a dry noodle dish, so this was very new for me. While walking through Mori, I got stunning views of the mountain, but I could also just see how empty it was. There was a lot of very abandoned buildings. The one nice thing about the trains in Mori is that they run directly next to the ocean. I had waited for 30 minutes in the wind to be first in line to get a nice ocean view seat for you guys. And guess who shoved me out of the way when the train doors opened so he could get that ocean seat? Yeah, the exact same guy who took photos of me. I was not pleased at all. I was like fuming. It's nice to look from afar, I guess. I stood up for some of it just to see if I could get a better view, but yeah, honestly, it was kind of a lost cause at that point. There was guys everywhere and oh well. Transferred trains again, actually got a window-facing seat, and then blasted through Hokkaido's countryside for a while. There was almost no one on this train with me because all of them had transferred to get to ski resorts at the previous station. I met a couple foreign factory workers who worked in fish processing plants up there, and they told me how cold it was and how bad the working conditions were, which is, I guess, to be expected. A lot of the signs in the stations themselves were just ancient looking. One of the stations was really cool, and it had a bit of a brook running under the actual platform itself, so we all kind of stopped to take a look. And there was a lot of decommissioned tunnels that ran parallel to the tracks. Apparently this used to be a 2-line train, then it was downgraded to a 1-line train, which does not help with the frequency of this. Most of your time in this train is spent in tunnels, unfortunately, so you didn't get the greatest ocean view, but oh well. As the sun set, I gradually made my way closer and closer to Sapporo. Eventually, I got there. Finally, my 7-day cross-country journey was over. So naturally, the first thing I wanted to do was to eat some miso ramen. Sapporo is very famous with this miso ramen, and I gotta say, it did not disappoint. This was delicious. Then I went to my hotel and I promptly fell asleep. The next morning, I got some of their hotel breakfast, which was amazing. Instead of miso soup, they had soup curry, which I appreciated. Soup curry is definitely not a traditional food. It was brought over by Indian immigrants, but it is delicious. There's like cumin, cardamom, fennel, anise, all these like nice warming spices in the soup curry itself. It is amazing. I have exactly 1 day in Hokkaido before I gotta go back, so I decided to make the most of it and go to Otaru. Otaru is definitely a pretty famous town. It's known for its canals, seafood, and also its museums. Because I'm a giant nerd, while I did really enjoy the historical buildings, I definitely came here for the museums and not much else. Unfortunately, a lot of the museums prohibited filming inside. All but one of them did. Now, while I went to 5 of them, I can only show you the ukiyo-e museum. Ukiyo-e museum is a museum entirely dedicated to woodblock prints. You probably don't know what I'm talking about if I just say it, but if I show you these pictures, you'll know. The museum was really, really interesting because it showed the whole process of making them, really old prints, and it also decided to show some 18+ woodblock prints because, you know, before OnlyFans and the Hub and things we have now, I guess to make a quick buck, people used to make giant, you know, adult-rated prints, and they had a collection of those. It was a little bit funny because some of the proportions were, as one might say, unrealistic, and it was interesting to see that body image issues have existed since, you know, the 20th century. That was fun. After finishing my museum tour, I went to a local seafood market, ate a sashimi don, and then I headed to a local shrine. I got a really cool goshuin. As you guys know, I collect those. But unfortunately, due to snowfall, a lot of the parts of the shrine itself were closed off, which, it's kind of a bummer. The lion dog guardian statues were also very eroded, to the point where they kind of looked almost comical. But oh well. After that, I headed to the airport, did a little bit of studying, and then went back to Kumamoto. And that's the end of my journey, and it was genuinely a really fun time. My butt did definitely hurt, but I would do it again. If I were to do it again, I would definitely do it in the summer, and maybe not the spring. In the spring, Japan kind of looks gray in some parts. It's not the most, photogenic of places. I met a lot of really cool people. I got to see Japan in its entirety for the first time, and yeah, it was a good experience. I would recommend it to you if you like trains and sitting in one spot for a really long period of time. That's all. See you guys next week.